Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Paul Chafetz. I am a psychologist in Dallas, Texas. I want to start by thanking the MSA Coalition and UT Southwestern for inviting me to participate today. It's an honor. I've been a psychologist for a long time, and I've treated patients with all sorts of diseases. And I have to tell you, I have yet to find a good disease. But if you wanted a candidate for a lousy disease, I think that MSA would certainly qualify, unfortunately. I have not worked with a lot of patients with MSA, but still, I am nevertheless hopeful that my comments will be relevant because they're based on my 40 years of experience working with patients with many lousy diseases, as well as the loved ones of these patients. So let's see if I can get this thing to progress. There we go. Let me explain what my role is in these cases. I have no skills or tools for curing or fixing any of these diseases. My job is to help people live with the diseases as successfully as possible. So to explain, let me give you a little bit of psychological terminology. We psychologists distinguish between primary control versus secondary control. Primary control refers to our efforts to actually fix a problem and make it go away. You get a flat tire, you get out and you change the tire. That's primary control. Obviously, this is always our first choice, and appropriately, we put a lot of effort into it, a lot of money and time and inconvenience. So when your doctors and most of the other speakers on today's program focus on the medicine and the therapies that help reduce some symptoms of MSAs, that is primary control. And thank God for them, right? For the parts of the problem, though, that cannot be fixed, we turn to secondary control, which is basically learning to adjust psychologically to the reality of the lingering hassles of the problem. And by adjust psychologically, what I mean is to find and use perhaps some new behavioral, emotional, or intellectual approaches that you probably never needed before. So that's what I'm going to spend the rest of my time today talking about, secondary control. In other words, I want to give you some tools for adjusting to your situation. And I want to apologize in advance if I inadvertently give the impression that doing this, using these tools should be easy, or if it were me, that I could do it perfectly, because neither is true. I know full well it's not me facing this challenge, it's you. And what's easy to say is not necessarily easy to do. So there are two kinds of secondary control. One is a sense of mastery over your journey, and the other is a sense of meaning as you travel that road. Okay, mastery and meaning. Mastery and meaning, both are important. So I want to talk a little bit about how to achieve some of these. We'll start with mastery. So these are some practical steps and some reusable, repeatable skills. So, for example, do your paperwork, your end of life paperwork. It's important that every adult, but especially someone with a serious disease, has already in place their will, powers of attorney. They've assigned power of attorney through the right documentation, both for financial affairs and secondly for medical affairs or healthcare affairs. Okay, so a will, medical power of attorney, financial power of attorney. And then we have what we call a directive to physicians, also called a living will. This is a non-binding document in which you communicate to your doctors and your family how aggressively you want them to keep you alive if you are very close to death's door. Okay, so if you are dependent on a ventilator and unconscious, like permanently, do you want to be kept on the ventilator or should they pull the plug? That's a directive to physicians, also called a living will. Many people also write what we call an ethical will in which you express the values by which you have tried to live your life and that you want your descendants, your survivors, to live. And finally, on a piece of paper or somewhere, share all of your passwords. So if they have to get into your financial accounts, your email, and so forth, they can get in and do what needs to be done. Another mastery effect or skill is to get smart about emotions. You've heard about emotional intelligence. That's what I'm talking about. Even if you never have before, now is the time to learn how to recognize, honor, and express your emotions and others. Emotions have a real impact on our health, and emotions are the glue really that holds us together as a personality and holds our relationships together with other people. Look, any loss we have, any bad news is sad, and we have to grieve. It causes grief. So grieve. Let yourself cry and let out your sad feelings. And whether it's happy or sad or scared or angry, express it in a respectful way to others. And if no one's around, stand in front of a mirror and speak them out loud to yourself, to the universe. Teamwork. Look, facing a disease is a team sport. It's a family effort. You're going to thrive or struggle, cruise or crash as a team. So you have to support each other, kind of like teamwork, right? We call it teamwork. All of your doctors are on your team. You have to support each other. What does support look like? It means cooperating with each other, following doctors' orders, being honest with each other, being kind to each other, on the assumption that every person on your team is doing the best they know how to do. It also means having realistic expectations of each other. Don't expect your team members to be Superman. Another mastery component and skill is empathy. Empathy is acknowledging to another person their right to have their feelings. Don't ever try to reason someone out of their feelings or tell them they should not be feeling that way. We all crave that to have our emotions validated and to our right to have our feelings respected, so we should do that to others. Caregiver self-care is very important. Caregiving is hard. That's why they call it caregiver burden. You're familiar with the phrase or the sound that goes like this. I spell AAH, and I contend that AAH stands for ask for and accept help. So no caregiver should try to be a do-it-all person who doesn't need help. We all need help. So caregivers need more rest, nutrition, exercise, respite, and opportunities to talk about their struggle. Also, they need less alcohol and other mind-altering substances. They don't help in the long run. So those were 5 examples of developing mastery. Let's turn now to meaning. Get my timer going here. Not bad. Meaning. And we're going to talk about how to create meaning through both actions and insights. Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist in Vienna, Austria, in the 1930s. Being Jewish, he soon found himself an inmate in a Nazi concentration camp, and you can only imagine the horrors he witnessed and experienced. He survived, and he wrote about his experience and the insights he gained in his book titled Man's Search for Meaning, which has become a classic right away. He basically found, and he wrote in the book, that among his fellow concentration camp inmates, those who had a reason to survive tried harder to survive and did survive in higher rates than those who were poorly connected with people in their life before their imprisonment. So those who had loved ones waiting for them, who they wanted to reunite with, they worked harder to survive because there was more meaning in their life. So Frankl says that a life that is worthwhile is worth fighting for. If it is meaningful, it is worth fighting for, more so than a life that is empty and boring because they are not connected. So how do we create meaning? Most people create meaning in their lives through actions that help them grow as a person. So how do we grow? Meaning is created through activities, growth-related activities like learning, expanding our knowledge base, helping others, being of use to society, creating, whether it be writing, drawing, creating music, producing, be it earning money, raising a garden, producing, experiencing. Some people find meaning from travel and jumping out of an airplane and bungee cord jumping and seeing new places. Connecting with others is a way to create meaning. And of course, connecting with the eternal, with God, is an important way that many people create meaning in their life. Now, obviously, when we are healthy, mobile, pain-free, then all of those avenues that I just mentioned for creating meaning are open to us. If you're not so healthy, mobile, and pain-free, they might not all be available to you, but surely some of them remain open. So I encourage you to think about which of those avenues might be available to you still, even though you're sick. So I'll just name them again quickly: learning, helping others, creating, producing, experiencing, connecting with others, and connecting with God. Religious beliefs, I think, play a very important role. Spirituality, connection with the eternal, aspiring to the qualities of a higher power. You know, I have found that among people facing chronic progressive diseases, those who believe that God has a plan for them generally maintain better mood, more positive mood than those who are not religious. I think it is very comforting to believe that God's plan for us is good. It's good for us and leads to a happy ending, even if the journey to that ending is unpleasant, maybe very unpleasant. It's comforting for them to believe that in the world to come, all of this will be explained. We've been asking, why me? It'll all be explained, and the wisdom and the meaning of the journey will be clear, and it will have all been worth it. So in my experience, even very sick people are able to maintain a sense of meaning every day, even find meaning in their disease. I want to give you an example. It's very profound that I've shared this many times. I have met people. So okay, let's say you're the patient and your life stinks because of all these symptoms of this terrible disease. I bet there is at least one loved one you have, perhaps a child of yours, and you are so glad that they don't have this disease. And if your child did have this disease, you would be saying, God, let me carry the burden. Make me the sick one, not my child, right? So listen, how do you know that in fact was not exactly the case and that prayer of yours was answered? And that's why you're sick now. In other words, your sickness is sparing your child from having a similar sickness. Your prayers have been answered. Your illness is the answer to your prayers. right? It's a very powerful thought. No illusions. Okay, what do I mean? I think when most people are healthy and normal, there is a normal illusion of immortality. We know that intellectually one day we'll die in the distant future, but it's so distant and abstract that it's not really real. Only when we get a diagnosis that, yes, I have a disease that's serious, that's what wakes us up. It puts us in a whole new stage of life. Keep my timer going. And say, oh, this is what I'm going to die of. This illusion of immortality dies, and I think that's good. I think it's a major step toward full, mature psychological adulthood to have zero illusions. I think that also getting sick teaches us the appreciation for time, again, because our future is not endless anymore. And when any commodity is scarce, its value goes up. That's why diamonds and gold cost so much, because they're scarce. So when time becomes scarce, it means that we appreciate every day, every minute that much more. I think this is good. Another step toward full, mature psychological adulthood. On a similar note, I think it's almost universal that when we are consumed with pain, hassle, loss, inconvenience from the symptoms of a disease, we either get hopeless and sad or bitter and angry. Now, when that is our frame of mind, we generally lose sight of the millions of blessings that we still have. Look, we're not in Ukraine. We're not getting bombed. No one's shooting at us. Our roof doesn't leak. Our car runs. Our groceries have food, and our refrigerator has food. We have relatives and friends who love us. The fact that we're sick and in pain does not erase our many, many, many blessings. So here's the deal. Putting time and effort into staying fully mindful of our blessings and having gratitude for our blessings is a very important and powerful counterweight to the painful emotions of being sick or having a loved one who is sick. Basically, I'm saying your life could be even worse, but it's not. And that's something to be thankful for. Well, maybe you say to me, look, Chafetz, don't you realize what's going on? I mean, how much worse is this? How much worse could it get? And I would say to you, in all frankness, I don't mean to be cold. Look, everybody dies. Dying is easy. Living is hard. Living is hard. Your path in life is hard. How we face our challenges shows what we're made of, how much character we have. What kind of person do you want to be? What meaning will you squeeze out of this ordeal? What legacy will you leave? What will people say about you when you're gone? The ideal outcome is that when we got sick, we learned how to use that as a vehicle for personal growth. We turned adversity into advantage. In every story, you think about Star Wars, every story, there's a hero. And it starts out the hero is leading a perfectly normal life, a boring life, until a crisis walks into that life and he is yanked out of his perfectly boring life and thrown into a journey that is frightening, dangerous, existential. The hero is tested and faces very real risk of failure on an epic, catastrophic scale. The hero has to dig deeply into their own character, face their fears, find the courage to never give up, but to work rather to their last breath to find the solution to their dilemma, defeat their adversary. And if they do this, they achieve the sort of heroic transformation that turns them into a case of post-traumatic growth. I think every one of us has a duty to be the hero of our own life so that we will be proud of how we are remembered. And this is my hope and my prayer for you, that you will find the courage to be heroic, to face your fears, to find the courage to never give up, to be the very best you every day. So to summarize, primary versus secondary control, fixing everything you can and adjusting and developing skills for successfully enduring those parts that cannot be fixed. And mastery and meaning, gaining skills and finding a worldview and outlook on where you fit in the universe that brings to you a sense of value, growth, pride, and meaning. I appreciate your attention today, and I look forward to answering questions if you have them. Thank you so much.